Okay, I'm in the Book of Ether, Chapter 3, in the Book of Mormon, using LDS.org. And this is a chapter that I've done some couple videos on, or in conjunction with some others. But I kind of just want to go over certain things in this chapter. And today I came across some YouTube videos by a woman calling herself Book of Mormon Reader. So if you're listening, Book of Mormon Reader, I'll probably send this to you first. And I hope everything is good in your life. And you've been very diligent in reading the Book of Mormon, it looks like, for a long period of time to people on your YouTubes. Wish you nothing but good. Ether Chapter 3 with some commentary. So, this chapter's for you and others. I'm going to do a little commentary here, and I was wondering if you would notice the things that I have noticed, and during your commentary I didn't see that. So here we are in Ether Chapter 3. This is set about 2200 BC, supposedly, about 1800 years after Adam and Eve would have gotten kicked out of the Garden of Eden, according to the story that we find in Genesis and Book of Moses and that sort of thing. And so Brother Jared here, he's apparently already gone out and got his 16 moonstones, or whatever they are, clear stones. Called them moonstones when I was a child and saw things like that. And they didn't glow, though. And he's going to ask the Lord to touch them with his finger and light them up so they can have light in their amazing barges. Very amazing sounding barges, actually. And so, as he goes up onto the mount. So I've got some, there's some perplexing observations here. So here we are, 2200 BC. And I think in the past there he kind of ticked the Lord off, didn't pray to him for like 3 years or something, it sounded like, and then the Lord was angry. But he softened up, and they were on their way to the promised land. They built some barges, and they want light in them so they don't get smashed by the mastodons that might be in there or something. All the animals that they say they're taking across. Orson Pratt said they had mastodons, I'm pretty sure, in there. Of course, he might have been wrong, but he was an apostle, supposed to know things. So anyway, he goes up on the mountain. Here we are, verse 3, and I will ad-lib a little bit. So he goes, "Behold, O Lord, we're just, we're not that great, but you are," and he is schmoozing a little bit, as you kind of indicated there, Book of Mormon Reader. I'll agree with you. "And I know that you've got all power, and we're just, we're just lowly humans." Moving right along. So in verse 6, "And it came to pass that Brother Jared, after he had said these words, the words of, 'Hey, please touch the stones,' that the Lord put forth his finger, stretched forth his finger, and he touches the stones one by one. And it says the veil was taken off the eyes of the brother of Jared, and he saw the finger of the Lord, and it was as the finger of a man. And he looked like somebody had flesh and blood." Okay, we know that stuff. "But he was struck with fear." That's interesting. Struck with fear. I guess he doesn't think the Lord's a really nice guy. "And the Lord saw that the brother of Jared had fallen to the earth. And the Lord said unto him, Arise, why have you fallen? Why hast thou fallen? Why have you fallen?" Now, the Lord's supposed to know all things, so it's a little odd that he says, "Why have you fallen?" But maybe it's a rhetorical question. We'll just give that thought there. And next, "And he says unto the Lord, I saw the finger of the Lord, and I was afraid that you might smite me, because I didn't know you had flesh and blood." That's a great reason to smite him. I thought Jesus was supposed to be loving. Why would he smite somebody for not knowing that, what he looked like? Doesn't really sound right to me. But "And the Lord said unto him, Because of thy faith thou hast seen that I shall take upon me flesh and blood. And never has man come before me with such exceeding faith as thou hast. For if it were not so, you could not have seen my finger." Okay, that's interesting. I'm going to save that for a few verses there. Hold on to part of that thought. "Sawest thou more than this?" Okay, now this is the second time he's asked him a question on something that he should know, and this doesn't sound like the time for a rhetorical question. he should know if he's seen him. You know, he's seen the New Testament where he says, and Jesus perceiving their thoughts, but in this case, he doesn't seem to know whether he saw more than that. Okay, so he says, no, show yourself to me. Probably said, please. Doesn't say so. And the Lord says to him, do you believe what I'm going to say? It's like, sure. I know that thou speakest the truth, for thou art a God of truth, and cannot lie. Taking out the Elizabethan English here. Canst not lie. So he says, I know it, and you can't lie. So is the Lord going to say something really profound to test his faith here? And when he had said these words, behold, the Lord showed himself unto him. Okay, so I guess he went right to it and didn't say something profound right then, I guess. And said, because thou knowest these things, you are redeemed from the fall. Therefore you're brought back into my presence. Therefore I show myself unto you. So he showed himself unto him because he knows these things. What things? That he has a spirit body, I guess. Verse 14. Now here we go. Behold, I am he who was prepared from the foundation of the world to redeem my people. Okay, I was prepared. Did you prepare yourself, Jesus? Oh, he didn't say he was Jesus yet, excuse me. Behold, I am Jesus Christ. I am the Father and the Son. Did I read that right? Yeah, I did. I am the Father and the Son. In me shall all mankind have life, and that eternally. All men are going to have eternal life? Even they who shall believe on my name. Okay, now we've qualified it again. It's not all men. And they shall become my sons and my daughters. So they're not already your sons and daughters? If you're the Father, like the Christian Trinitarians believe, which is what it sounds like here, then the people already would be your sons and daughters. How is it that you are saying you are the Father and the Son, and you were prepared? As if your Father prepared you, but you are the Father. It doesn't really sound like LDS doctrine as we know it today. And never have I showed myself unto man, whom I have created. For never has man believed in me as thou hast. Okay, great. So, 1800 years or so after Adam would have left the garden, is where we are on the biblical timeline. And no one's ever had enough faith to see the Lord. He just said so. He basically said that in verse 9, and then he confirmed it in verse 15. No one's ever had sufficient faith to see him. But the brother of Jared apparently did have so much faith that he saw him. He must have been so righteous. According to Bruce McConkie, Elder Bruce R. McConkie, faith is a gift from God as a result of our personal righteousness, if I recall that correctly from Mormon doctrine many years ago. So, sounds like he was the most righteous man in the world if he had enough faith to see the Lord, and no one ever had. Now, Joseph Smith apparently saw the Lord, he says, as a lad, I'll use that word. And Martin Harris saw the Lord, he said, in the form of a deer, walking beside him and talking with him on the road for 3 miles. And Sidney Rigdon saw the Lord standing upon the breastwork of the pulpit at the Kirtland Temple, I think. And I'm not sure if Oliver Cowdery did at this moment. I think so, but maybe not. Of course, he did hang out with John the Baptist and Peter, James, and John, and, you know. So, it seems like there are a number of people. Now, didn't the Lord appear to just about everybody in the Kirtland Temple? Or, not everybody, but weren't there multiple people that said they saw the Lord in the Kirtland Temple? Lorenzo Snow just happened to bump into him when he was taking a walk in the middle of the night in the Salt Lake Temple, in the hallway. Jesus was out walking in the hallway. Lorenzo Snow had been praying in the Holy of Holies, and I guess Jesus wasn't paying attention. But he just bumped into him by accident in the hallway, kind of the way he described it, if I'm not being too irreverent sounding. That's kind of the way I thought it said it when I read it out of the Sunday School Gospel Doctrine Manual many years ago. So it seems like Jesus is just showing up to all kinds of people in Joseph Smith's time. But in 1800 years, no one had ever seen him. No one had ever had sufficient faith. Now, we read later that the brother Jared had so much faith that he actually moved mountains, I believe. He moved the mountain Zerum or something like that. So, this all seems kind of, several things here that seem a little perplexing. And I have happened to open up other tabs here. Now I'm in Moses chapter 7 in the Pearl of Great Price, verse 4. Enoch is talking. He's gone up into a mountain, and he said he was clothed upon with glory in verse 3. Verse 4, he says, "And I saw the Lord, and he stood before my face, and he talked with me, even as a man talketh one with another, face to face. And he said unto me, Look, and I will show unto thee the world for the space of many generations." And then he goes on, and he has a vision or something. And he hangs out with the Lord face to face, and has interesting discussions with him about the earth being baptized when the floods come and so forth. And it goes on to say that the Lord dwelt with Enoch and his people for 365 years in the city of Zion, I guess starting with this point. And I've kind of covered this chapter pretty well other times, so I'm not going to go too far into that, but I'm going to go over to Doctrine and Covenants, section 107. And so, mind you, it appears that this happened when Enoch was 65, because he hung out with the Lord 365 years till he was 430, and then he was translated according to D&C 107. So that was in the year about 3313 BC. Yeah, like about 1100 years before this brother of Jared deal that says he was the first. We also find that Enoch moved mountains and rivers in chapter 7 here. Apparently he had faith like the brother of Jared over 1,000 years before him and hung out face to face with the Lord. Now I'm in D&C 107. Going through kind of a priesthood genealogy here, and it says in verse 48, Enoch was 25 years old when he was ordained under the hand of Adam. And he was 65 when Adam blessed him. 65 is also when his son was born, and it is also when the numbers are right for him to have stood in the presence of the Lord. And he saw the Lord, and he walked with him. And he was before his face continually, and he walked with God 365 years, making him 430 total when he was translated. Yeah, there's the word translated. Okay, it doesn't say translated in Moses chapter 7, but it says basically that the city went up to, in process of time, was lifted up off the earth. Which happened to be 240 years before this happens in verses 53 and 54, when we read, 3 years previous to the death of Adam, he called Seth, Enos, Cain, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, and Methuselah, who were all high priests, with the residue of his posterity who were righteous, into the valley of Adam-on-Diamon, and there bestowed upon them his last blessing. And the Lord appeared unto them. And they rose up and blessed Adam, and called him Michael the archangel. And the Lord administered comfort unto Adam, and said unto him, I have set thee at the head, a multitude of nations shall come to thee. Thou art a prince over them forever. Do the math. This is about 240 years after the Lord was hanging out with the most righteous people ever in the city of Zion. It doesn't say that it was lifted up off the earth. It doesn't say exactly when. It said it was lifted up in process of time, so there's only 125 years left before it's totally gone. They're translated on this timeline we've got here. And so this is 927 years after Adam leaves the garden, so about 873 years or so, whatever, before where we think we are around the time of the brother of Jared. It's supposed to be 2200 BC, the flood of Noah being 2344 BC, so 144 years about before the Jaredites are supposed to have been leaving from the Tower of Babel to head to the Promised Land, which would have been washed clean by the flood, apparently. So here we have an incident, again, of people, nearly 1,000 years before the brother of Jared, with the Lord, whoever that is, appearing to them. Now when I say whoever that is, it doesn't say who the Lord is here. But if you look at the references, or if you click a link, it'll put like anti-mortal visits of Jesus Christ. Now, in Moses chapter 7, when the conversation, if you read the conversation, he talks as if he's God the Father. Talks about his beloved son and all that sort of thing. And then he starts talking like he's the son. He says, I'm going to reign upon the earth for 1,000 years. And after, I sacrificed for my people. So he's a multi-personality being in Moses chapter 7, the way I read it. Just like he's the Father and the Son in Ether chapter 3. Here, there's no statement in 107 that really denotes identity as far as father or son business. So I'm not going to worry too much about that in this at the moment. Maybe I have looked at that. The Book of Mormon, which was making statements in the earlier editions, calling Jesus the Father much more than it does now. But there's still plenty in there that has him as the Father. It has a very, kind of Trinitarian-like view. It certainly isn't like we have today in section 130. In fact, in the Doctrine and Covenants or early editions in the Book of Commandments and in Lecture 5 in the Lectures on Faith, Joseph Smith said that the Father was a spirit, like it says in the New Testament, and the Holy Ghost was the combined mind and will of God in Christ. He is not defined as a spirit man. But Jesus had a resurrected body, so essentially he'd passed up his Father in the LDS plan of salvation, of progression. He had a resurrected body, and the Father apparently didn't in the earlier descriptions, which we thought were correct and authoritative, but what was true is no longer true, just as many other doctrines, like things Brigham Young taught and so forth. What was true is no longer true in the Godhead doctrine. It has changed. And although the Book of Mormon was published before the Book of Moses by Joseph Smith and before D&C 107, it has a heavy-duty anachronism there saying that the Lord told the brother of Jared that he was the first to ever see him and the first to have enough faith. So is Jesus forgetful? Did he forget all about the city of Zion and Enoch and all these patriarchs and all their other righteous descendants that it says right here he appeared to, and they were all there? The same people that would have been in the city of Zion. So they came down and hung out in Missouri for a while from the city of Zion, came down so that the Lord could come and meet them when he already lived with them for the last 240 years. And then he tells the brother of Jared, you're the first one. You're the first. You're the only one. I imagine there are a lot of unfortunate girls that have heard that from lustful boys, huh? Well, anyway, sorry, brother Jared. According to these other scriptures, you are not the first, and Jesus apparently didn't tell you the truth unless these other things are not true. They can't all be true. They're in direct conflict. Jesus says he's the Father and the Son. Jesus asked the brother of Jared questions that he should know the answer to. The first could be rhetorical. The second, it seems like he absolutely doesn't realize. He seems concerned to know whether or not the brother of Jared saw any more of him. Maybe he hadn't combed his hair or something. I don't know. It doesn't go along with what we are told are the characteristics of God, of the Lord. The Lord changes who he is, and the Lord is not consistent in what he's telling us here. Or Joseph Smith has got a malfunction in his seer stone, if in fact he's using that for things other than the Book of Mormon. He appears to have a malfunction in it in doing the Book of Abraham, because he supposedly did about 6 pages a day if we look at the pace for the Book of Mormon, which would have been doing the Book of Abraham in 2 days instead of 7 years. And he didn't even get the Book of Joseph in there. He said the writings were written by Abraham and Joseph, and he didn't translate the things from Joseph, but he paid a lot of money, enough to buy maybe 200 or 300 acres of land in Kirtland. It started off at $7 an acre. That's like 300 acres. Then the price went up, and they were into land speculation, and got the Kirtland Anti-Banking Safety Society going when they couldn't get a bank charter. And I think the land speculation had something to do with it. I think it went up to like $47 an acre for a while. Even at that price, $2,400 for a document that comes out with like the Book of Abraham. Got a video on that, so I'm not going to get too far into it. But we've gone over the content, and well, there are some major issues in the content, aside from the whole papyrus being, funerary text from 1 or 200 BC, not 2000 BC. Not even discussing that, the content is really not possible for someone to have written in 2000 BC. And even no matter when it was written, a lot of it's still wrong no matter what. So, let you look at that video. I'm not going to spoil that one by letting too much information out on that. Just look at it. It's documented. So here we are. Well, Mormon reader and everybody else, Ether Chapter 3 seems to be problematic. Jesus doesn't keep his story straight. He's told us opposite stories here. Moses didn't have enough faith. I mean Enoch in the book of Moses, according to Ether 3, but according to Moses 7 he sure did. And according to BNC 107 they sure did. Okay, Mormon Truth video library out.